Okay, welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And so, as we try to do every single time, is to make sure that we give content that can help you move forward, that can help you move from what we call the past, into the future by trying to live in the present. And so, what's so kind of crazy about the present, and as I think of this, I think heaven is going to be we're in the present forever, right? But here, you're either in the past or you're looking towards the future, right? Because if you think of, if I say we are in the past, as soon as I say the word past, it's before us, right? It happened. Right. It already happened. And so today I have Greg Brown on. And so when you think of folks, and as I'm trying to do, we're going to try to do, this is 2024. If you're watching it at a different year, we're doing 100 Black men this year. And Journey to Freedom is exclusively for Black men, of how we move forward and how we take this journey and know what happened in our past, but be able to move forward and not get stuck. And so, when I think about, Greg works for an organization here in Colorado called, CHAFA right now, and it is dedicated on housing and getting people into homes. Because we realize that when you think about finances and you think about wealth and you think about generational wealth and you think about how do we move forward with our families and our legacy, one of the biggest ways is through homeownership and being able to, take somebody to be able to buy their first piece of property that they probably didn't know that they knew how to do, and then be able to move forward. But Greg has a lot more depth to them other than the job that he does. And he has a family, he has a life, he has things that, I say this often, is success leaves clues, right? And if you want to find success in your life, you find people who are succeeding and you kind of find out what they're doing. And in some cases, duplicate it in the ways that can help you move forward. And so, Greg, thank you for being on today. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us today. And then maybe you can just kind of tell us a little bit about your journey, about your story, about how you got to where you're at. And then we'll jump into what you're doing and how we can help others. But we'd love to just kind of hear that story at this point.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Brian, thanks for having me. I'm excited for your platform, man. This is great. This is good stuff, man. The community needs something like this, because the more we can talk about exactly what we're talking about here, the past, historically wise, how it affects our now, how it affects our future, and how we can move forward. And the more people and the more men that talk to other Black men about success, and the more we hear it, it just creates that domino effect. So I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be here and excited for this platform, Brian. A little bit about me, man. I was never going to be that guy getting into the mortgage business. I never saw myself, before I came on where I am with CHAFA, and CHAFA is the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. It's the state Housing and Finance Authority. But before I came with CHAFA, I was on the lending side of things in the mortgage business for over 15 years. I started as a loan officer back in about 2004, 2005. Worked for several, of the big name companies. You name it, I worked for them. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't my path. There was another plan. God had another plan, And so my path, when I was in college, I was a communications major. And I had done internships with sports marketing. I had done radio and television broadcasting. I'm originally from New Jersey, so I had an internship at News 12 New Jersey. And, I was going to be that, that sports guy, that reporter, that sports marketing or something like that, And then you get out of college, you get in life, and, things happen and life happens, and you start to go down a little bit different of a path than you thought you might have. And, but I am a firm believer that things happen for a reason. And that path that was put in front of me, which I didn't think I was going to take. And I really, along the way, to tell you the truth, Brian, as I'm in it and I'm doing it, I'm questioning, why am I on this path? Why am I going this route? And I start not having regrets, but you start thinking back like, man, why I had all these plans to do X, Y, and Z. And here I am doing these mortgages, going through the ups and downs, going through 2008, going through
Yes.
what we experienced after the clearance Walmart sale of 2020, and now the 2021, 2022. So I went through all that, and so, but it brought me to a place where I can be now. All the education, all the knowledge that I gained in the mortgage industry um, allow me to be where I am now, to get in the communities, to get in the Black communities, and be able to talk to our people, be able to talk to our community about home ownership, the importance of generational wealth, the importance of getting out of that mindset that you can only rent and that's all that there is for you, just to help change that thought process. And all that, brought me to here. And I believe it all happened for a reason. I couldn't see it when it was going on, but when it started happening, it was just one of those things like, wow, because I would tell you the last mortgage stop, the last loan officer position I was at, I was just kind of at my wit's end kind of with the whole business. And it was more so, I didn't really feel I was felt fulfilled, Brian. That's what it was. I didn't feel like, I was like, is this it? Is this all I'm really going to do is just slang loans and turn? And look, helping folks get into their home, the home of their dreams, especially when you're doing it for the Black community, when you're doing it on the loan side, there is a certain fulfillment to that. But it was kind of, I was kind of losing. I'm like, I wanted more, and at the time I really wasn't sure what that more was. But then this opportunity came along, and once I saw that this opportunity, it was just lining up where I was at, both personally in life and professionally, and I just jumped on it, because I will say this while we're on here, I believe that, and I've heard this in the past when I was a little bit younger, and I really didn't really think about it as much until I got older. But there's 3 to 5 events, choices in your life that can change the outlook, can change the algorithm of how your life goes. And it's natural that we miss 1 or 2, but this was one that I knew I couldn't miss, and it stood out to me. And I feel like as men and as community, if we recognize these things and we jump on them, it could be life changing. And so that's what happened for me, college wise, to work through where I'm at now.
Gotcha. So, part of identity, and when we think about identity is, the people that we're around, the associations that we have, the folks that guide us, the mentors that are part of our lives. You were able to go to college,
Right.
and if we drop back into the importance of education, or the importance of being able to, and maybe just drop back and kind of be like your upbringing a little bit, what enabled you to realize that college was important enough to go to get an education? And I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, I mean, it could be everybody that you were around, everybody went to college, and that's what just everybody in your community did. My thought process is probably not. And so what was it that kind of changed your trajectory compared to maybe other people in your family from another spot, or other people in your community?
Sure.
Talk to me a little about that.
Sure. Yeah. So, we're all a product of our environment, and we're all, that identity that we're talking about is it's shaped, and it can be shaped through your family. It can be shaped through your community, the people that you keep around you. My identity was shaped by all of that, but a lot of me is my dad, my parents, the influence of my extended family. Now, let's just focus on what we're talking about here, is the education piece. I was blessed in the fact that I grew up, my parents are still married. My mom's side of the family, all teachers. I come from a family, all teachers.
Okay.
My mom was a phys ed health teacher, and she was a coach, and she got her master's in education. And I have 2 aunts, one, rest her soul, but 2 aunts that were both principals, educated, with their masters. I have a uncle, same side of the family, that he was a science teacher, basketball coach, won state championships. You know, my dad went to college. And so not everybody in my excuse me, in my family and or extended family went to college, but it was a common theme in our family that
expectation almost, right?
Expectation, you know?
Okay.
And my dad told me, you know, I was on the 18 and out plan regardless. He said, listen, man, when you turn 18, my dad was military. My dad was military. When you turn 18, you can go to the military, you can go to college. If that's not built for you, you get out the house and get your own job. But at 18, you're getting out the house. And so I knew I wasn't ready to live on my own yet. And my two choices were at that time, military or college. And I grew up playing football. I played 6 years old all the way through college. And so having that as a goal, I always wanted to play college football. And so having that as a goal also helped push me to want to be in college. But I will tell you, there was a time I didn't think it was going to happen. I did not think college was going to happen for me at one point in my life. Freshman year in high school was really hard for me. It was really hard to adjust in the high school. You know, I'll just be transparent since we're on here and we will talk about past struggles that help us. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, and in New Jersey at the time, this is my freshman year, 1994. I have, you have 6 classes every report card, and I failed 3.
Wow.
And I did that all 4 report cards. And then I took summer school and I got A's in all 3 of the classes that I failed. Now my mom's mad because she's like, boy, so I told you, you ain't no dummy. You just weren't applying yourself. Now you have summer school and you have to go do it, and then you apply it. So, but what I'm saying is, even when I made honor roll my junior and senior year in high school and I started figuring things out, I had messed up so bad my freshman year that it was hard to make up. And I have no problem telling that story, and I tell it to my kids because I want young people to know, like, hey, don't go messing up like that and thinking, oh, it's 3-4 years down the road, I can make up for it. Because when you mess up so bad, it's hard to catch back up. But anyway, circling back around, that's what really propelled me was my family, my parents, my aunts, uncles, my community, the friends that I had, my sisters, the family as a whole was really what instilled in me, like, hey man, the best opportunity that you will probably be able to give yourself later down the road in your future life is having an education and learning to learn. We all get education in high school, but take it to a little bit different level when you go to college, because now you're learning how to learn. You're learning how to assimilate in an environment that you haven't been in yet. Simulate with people, learn how to speak and talk and learn and take notes and just live life in general. And so that's what propelled me to get in and get through college, man.
Gotcha. So when you say, learning how to learn, and you think of what does that mean to be able to learn how to learn? Because are there places or people or things that where it just triggered, all of a sudden became, you said your last few years of high school, you're on the honor roll and you're doing what is expected, or not even expected. What was that intrinsic for you, or was it because of the pressures of everybody else? Was there a time when you just like, wait a minute, I got to get myself together. I got to get my act together. I have to learn what it means to be successful. Because I guess what I'm saying, if we drop back to your freshman year, there must have been some things that wasn't clicking as far as what I need to do.
Yeah.
Where did that transition happen? And what are some of the results of those lessons that maybe you put together?
Yeah, I remember, to be honest with you, I remember feeling it towards the end of my sophomore year going into my junior year. And I'm just going to tell you, it was a feel. I just got hit where I was like, I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm tired of the family looking at me like this. My whole freshman year, like I said, my dad was military. He didn't play. I was grounded my whole freshman year. I sat up in my room. What was that Brandy song? Sitting up in my room. I was sitting up in my room. I was sitting up in my room my whole freshman year and summer, and my dad yanked me out of everything. The only reason I got to finish a football season was because that first report card didn't come out until after the season was over. And so no basketball, no track, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, but he yanked me out of basketball and track. And so my sophomore year, I was coming out of it, but it wasn't as good as where it should have been. And you just get to a point, at least for me, I just get to a point where I'm tired of it. I'm tired of feeling like that. I'm tired of people looking at me like a certain way, like I'm stupid. And that's coaches, that's teachers, that's family members, that's peers, everybody out having fun, and I can't do it because I'm over here messing up doing this and that. And it was just something just changed in me. It just clicked. I can't really pinpoint one specific, but I remember it was that feeling coming out of my sophomore year, going into my junior year, telling myself, Greg, if you want to give yourself a chance at anything further in life, you really got to change how you're approaching this whole school thing right now. And you don't want people thinking about you a certain way like they already are. Apply yourself and see what happens. And I would start paying attention more. And I started understanding the work more, which helped a lot. And I started understanding myself more. I started knowing the way that I learn. I started not being scared to ask questions. I started staying after school and getting tutors. That's another thing. The summer of my freshman year, I got tutors. And moving forward, even in college, I used tutors because I understood that was a way I learned better. I was in study hall in college, and I was on the football team, and the coaches your freshman year, they make you take study hall, but once you can get a certain GPA, I believe it was like 3.2 or higher, you no longer have to be in study hall. And I got a GPA higher than that, but I kept myself in study hall because I understood I needed that more one-on-one attention to succeed at the education piece. So it was really kind of a flip of a switch with me being real with myself, of where things were going, and then even by my senior year, I wasn't completely sure. It helped that I was an athlete. I started getting recruited to play some ball, and then that combined with where I was at my senior year with grades and things like that. So it was just really like a mindset where it's like, okay, enough, man. Let's go do this. Enough is enough.
Wow, that's cool. So, when you think of contributing factors, the contributing factors are those outside factors that contribute to the decisions that we make. And then we have deciding factors. And I can tell there were some deciding factors right there in between that sophomore and junior year during that time where you made some decisions. Talk to me about the people in your life that helped you, or was it, hey, I just got to do this myself, or were there people or coaches or parents or aunts and uncles, or were there folks in your life that kind of helped guide your trajectory a little bit, or just because of their disappointment in you? It could be a positive impact, or it could be hey, knucklehead, you need to do what you need to do. Talk to me about some of those people that are in your life that might have helped you.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of both, but a lot of the people that were around me. I tell my children, I tell my 2 kids, they're not kids, they're 20 and 17 now, but I tell them keep successful people around you, keep like-minded people that are doing things, keep them around you, and my parents were always in the community. My mom, outside of what she did with her work at school, she was always, putting on the big Christmas play at school, but also involving herself anywhere we moved. She was always involved in the community. Same thing with my dad. If I'm playing Pop Warner football, he's coaching. He got to the point where he was I think the vice president of whatever that Pop Warner chapter was. My mom was the head of the Palms, and so everyone in the community knew the family. And so I think when you grow up seeing that, you have no choice for that kind of thing to rub off on you. And and so it is a lot of the family. We all have the family members that are doing things. We have family members that aren't doing things, and you want to bounce things off of. I see my older sister having success. I see my other sister having success. I see my parents have success, my aunts and uncles, and you want that success for you. And so it really was a lot of the family that, even when things were down when I was young, they believed in me. They just needed me to believe in myself. And that's a lot of the narrative of Black men in the community. You know, we need to believe in ourselves more and step out those, don't let those outside notions or identities that they're trying to put on you guide you. You know, beat that, be better than that. Anything's possible. I mean, we're a group of men that when we put our mind to it, bro, we can we'll take it over and we'll do great things, you know. And so, but yeah, for me personally, it was a lot of family and the people that I kept around me.
Okay, cool. You brought a family and having a few kids. Being a dad, you know, talk to me about the importance of being a dad and what are the legacies and the things that, as a dad, I mean, what's kind of nice is because you're not in that 2 and 3 year old and you're just trying to figure out, like, your kids are 17 and 20 at this point. You know, what were some of the things that are the lessons that you wanted to instill in? You know, what did it mean for you? You know, I know dad being dad, but something special about being an African American dad in this country in this time.
Yeah, man. Oh, first of all, being a dad, I mean, it's changed me. You know, I had my first, my daughter was born when I was 24, my son when I was 27, and I had no intention in starting fatherhood that early, but God had a different plan for me, and so, you know, just teaching, you know, teaching a young Black woman and a young Black man societal things that you're going to have to overcome. You know, and hearing myself repeat things that I never thought I would repeat that my parents said to me, I'm saying to them, and things happen in life. Like I remember when I was 10 and I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm looking, you know, my dad's a big 6'4" dude. So I'm looking, you know, way up at him and something had happened in class and I got in trouble and I said all the other kids were doing it. And he said, I don't care what the other kids were doing. You can't do the same thing that they're doing. You're a Black kid. You're a Black man in this country. You got to be twice as better. You can't do the same things that they're doing because you're going to get called out. And so we learned these things. And when I'm 10, I didn't understand what he was saying. You know, maybe even when I was 14, 15, I didn't understand what he was saying, but I never forgot that. And then I got older and things happen in life and you go back and you hear what your mom or your dad or your parents had told you and you realize it was true. But, you know, for my kids, you know, I would preach education. I would preach, you know, good moral compass. You know, kids are going to be kids. Teenagers are going to be teenagers. My daughter and I had a rough patch when, you know, between she was 14 and 16, as I'm hearing a lot of dads have with their teenage daughters. And, you know, and now my son turning 17, coming into being a young man. The teaching and the lessons will always, you know, continue to go on. They just kind of shift. You know, they just kind of move into different things. You know, now my son is driving, and there are the lessons that I teach him, like, hey man, don't be out there. I know you're gonna try to look cool, blaring your music, leaning back, hat backwards, and all that. You're gonna draw attention, and they're out there, you know, they're out looking, you know. And my daughter, you know, she's in college at CU Denver as a criminal psychology major. You know, she has a full-time job as well, goes to school at night. And but these are just kind of the things that I instilled. I told them both, you know, I'm not going to say I would prefer, but I told my kids, like, look, college is a good option. College is going to help you set up for things in the future that others won't have access to because they don't have a college degree. If you want to go that route, I hope you go that route. You know, and so, but I also didn't want them to feel like you have to go to college. You know, and so, man, being a Black father. In this country, to me it means a lot because we have that stigma about us already. You know, we have that identity that they try to put on us, that perception that they try to put on us. And so I mean, if you talk about legacy, I want my kids to know that they have a father that loved them, that never wavered, you know, even when they were even when they might not been doing right. Dad never wavered through all the drama, you know, that you know, because they're my kids aren't my wife's kids. Okay, so I will say this because we're in this space. There's a lot of obstacles we have to hurdle as Black men, and when it comes to having children with someone that you're not with anymore, and having to go through this child support system that they put us in. And when I say they put us in, I'm gonna say that because being in that system, at one time I was laid off. So I enrolled myself in the Parents to Work program. And in that program, there were these kind of group therapy sessions that you could attend. And they consisted of probably about, I don't know, let's call it 20, 30 men who are fathers within this session. And I'm not saying it was just for Black men, but you go and there's literally all Black men in this, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not to say, look, child support has its place, okay? It has its place for men that aren't taking care of their responsibilities. Then yes, you should go after them because they should be helping you. It is not built to be vindictive. It is not built because you know that you're bringing a Black man to the situation and you're going to get what you want. And you may not even be thinking in your mind as a woman that that's the purpose, but the view has been painted that, hey, that's a Black man. He's going to take off. He's going to run back to New Jersey, not take care of his responsibility. So I have to put child support on him. Otherwise, I'm not going to get nothing. I'm never a guy that never will. I will never run from a responsibility from my kids or anything like that. But because I'm a Black man and because of the thought process that our society, our country has put on us as a perception of, hey, you got to put them in child support or they're not going to take care of their responsibility. Man, I could keep it. Man, I don't even know if I'm still on.
No, you are so right on point because we're thinking this is helping. I can remember one of the loans I did not too long ago. You think about systems and pieces, and and so in this case, she was receiving child support from the father of her daughter, and he's been paying faithfully for the last 7 or 8 years. And then you go to the underwriting system and they're going, we can't use that income. Why can't you use the income? She's got it for the last 6 or 7 years. He's paid on time every single month. Well, he's not in the system. He's not mandated to pay it. And you start thinking of these systems that are put together. You go, well, okay, so you want to penalize this, man, in this case, a Black man, because he's taking responsibility for raising his kids.
Yeah.
And you're not going to let that income count for her to be able to buy a house. And you just go, wait a minute, there's so many things in there, that you're impacting that is so important. Like, yes, if you're not taking responsibility and you start thinking about our past and you think about, the family unit and, even back as far as slavery where they pulled men out and then we get it back together in the 30s, 40s and 50s and, families are doing well. And then into the 60s, we pull them in right back, late 60s, right back out of the families, and it's great to hear your story here because you're saying, no, wait, I'm a responsible guy. I was going to take care of my family, my kids, no matter what. And they're throwing me into these systems that are designed to put me down.
And you just touched on what I was going to talk about. Okay. The whole system, how it's set up, because they know the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority of the men in this particular system that we're talking about, are Black and brown people. And if you really want to, we could go deep. If you really want to go further, in our country, they don't want the Black man to succeed. The system is set up so we don't succeed. So where we're sitting now, Brian, where you are, where I am, we've already succeeded compared to where they want us to be at. Now, I know you and I want more success. The people that we know in our circle that I've seen you talk to, and I've seen that you have had on here, the Milford Adams of the world, the Omar Montgomerys of the world, they're successful, but we want more. We want to be able to pass on more, but it's not set up that way. My parents have had success. The aunts and uncles that I talked to you about earlier, they had success, but they had to overcome numerous things to get there, and they had to keep believing. So coming back to the whole system thing, what better way to keep a community poor is to keep them in that system. And I've never felt in my entire life, I've never felt more helpless than I felt in the beginning of that process and in the middle of it. When I'm in my young and mid 20s, man, and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm fresh out of college, and bam, that happens to me at an early age. I can't make no money because they're taking everything from me. And it's not that I don't believe in helping. It's not that I don't believe, like I said earlier, that it doesn't have its place. But you're going to sit there and not evaluate the whole situation because you don't want to employ enough people to have enough hours to sit around and actually review it and say, wait, no, hold on. This man is right here. He's in the state. He's working. He's not going there. What is your purpose of trying to put him the child support on him and put him in the system? But I've never felt so helpless because you can't, once you're in it, you can't get out. Now, yeah, as they get older, you're going to be out of it. But there's things that go on in the middle, like when I'm struggling to make the payments and I'd have to go to court. The judge says just pay what you can. So I pay what I can, but I'm behind. When you get behind, they suspend your driver's license. And so you're trying to get to work, but you can't drive. It's just all this craziness going on, And then when you research it, you start to find out, certain counties are getting grants or money to their system by collecting more child support and having people in the system. So it's this whole thing, man. It's this whole, I can go on and on about that, but it unfortunately affects our community of men more than it does others.
Well, yeah, and when you think of the mindset and the things that as a Black man that you are now having to contemplate on a daily basis while you're trying to move up the ladder and succeed, and then and there's got to be a way, and that's why we're doing this, right? This part of this journey is saying, okay, so yes, there are systems in place and contributing factors that are there in place. How do we move and rise above those contributing factors in order to take away that mindset and what you were feeling and the things that you were going through? And I'm just thinking, as I'm idealizing, out loud, is saying, what if there were groups that say, okay, this is how you do this. This is how you get through this. Yes, we are going to look at your whole situation. And then we're going to put a plan together. We're going to put goals together. We're going to help you create money instead of just that negative aspect of we're pulling everything you got and making you feel helpless. How do we make you feel strong as a result? Because at some point, okay, so now we move ahead a little bit, right? And so you have your two kids that were part of into the system. What were you able to do to rise out of that, where now you're in your situation where you are successful, you are taking care of, you are the dad, you're doing it, and to take away that pit that some people can't figure out a way to get out of, right? That you think of the folks that are in that class.
Yeah.
How if there was 10 people or 30 people in your class, all Black and brown folks, probably 27 of them are still in this phase of that belief system that they can't move forward. What did you do differently, or just what did you do that brought you out of this?
Two things, Brian. One, I kept fighting.
Okay.
I just kept fighting. And there were times where I just wanted to give up. There were times where I wanted to give up. But then I kept fighting. There were I had when I was starting to come out of it, I had a 9-to-5 job where I work in the morning. And at this time I had a job out in Golden. Okay. And I wasn't driving. So I was leaving my house in Aurora to catch the bus
to Golden.
I would get up at 5 a.m. to go catch the 5:40 bus. That 5:40 bus would bring me to the light rail station on Colorado and 25. I'd wait 15, 20 minutes to catch the light rail to shoot downtown. I would get downtown. I'd wait another 45 minutes to catch a bus that would take me to Golden so I could get to Golden to work by about 7:30, 7:45, so I could then leave at 4:30 to catch a bus to go downtown to work my second night job at the restaurant and bus tables and be a bar back, then become a server and wait tables and bartend and things of that nature. And I was at that. I was in that cycle for 10 years, man. I did not the golden job, but
Yeah.
I went on, got back in the mortgage business, and I was doing jobs that I worked early in the morning, got off 4:30, got downtown by 5:30, made some more money, and woke up and did it all over again. And it was pretty much that way from 2007 to about 2015. There are a few years in there I just worked the restaurant job full time. But for the most part, from 2007 to 2015, I had two jobs that I just kept working and just kept fighting. Another thing I wanted to point to was one of your pillars is faith, right? And like I guess there were times where I honestly was losing it, and but I kept fighting, and I started having more and more faith and faith that things are going to work out. And along that time, I met the woman who is now my wife, and she helped with instilling more positive and faith, having that partner and someone in your life that has your back or wants you to succeed, and in turn wants you to be a better man, and in turn you want to be a better man, and things start to shift a little bit. But faith, man, I mean, making moves. My cousin and I were just talking about this the other night. The whole faith thing. Making moves that are intentional, making moves that in the end it's guaranteed that what you're working to will come to pass. And so I just had that kind of, during this time, I'm talking to my cousin, I'm talking to my family, I'm bouncing things off. I'm just continue to have faith, continue to have fight, knowing like, look, this is going to be a little bit longer for me, but there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And if I keep fighting, and if I keep pushing, I keep getting there, it's going to be hard, but I got to figure out a way to make this work. And it's not going to look like it's going to look like for everybody else. I'm just going to have these two jobs for a little bit. But then I slowly, as I got more experience in the mortgage business, I slowly was able to start, as I got more experience, I got better at what I was doing. That in turn, I was making more money. And then so I could stop having to work as long as I did at night at the night job. So it went from every days but Sundays to just maybe 3 or 4 days of the week. And then it went down to just a couple days a week. And then it got to a point where, man, I don't even have to do it anymore. But it was a fight. In the middle of all that, there was a fight. I had to keep that faith that we were talking about as one of your pillars.
Oh man, this is so good because when I think of success leaving clues, what I started with, and when we think about work and fighting through, and I'm hoping the folks who are here watching this are going, okay, I might have felt this way at one point, or I feel this way, and this is what I found. All work works.
Yeah,
that's what I tell you. All work works. It's just maybe it's working on you until you're ready for it to work as making the money and doing the success and creating the success. But all work works, and the willingness to be able to get up and work through it. And I don't think you can do it without faith. In my mind, because one of the things is you think of faith and you go, okay, I have to have my own willpower, right? Well, willpower doesn't work without the faith that goes along with it, right? Without the belief that it's going to somehow be better, that faith is going to somehow, because our bodies are flesh, right? And the flesh is with sin, and then sin is fighting against us to be successful. And so if you don't have that faith or that, and I can see you always saw that light someday, it was never to you that this is how it's going to be.
And the light was low. It was a little faint at times.
Dim and
a little dim. That it was still glimmering though. It was still glimmering. But as I'm going through it, Brian, I really did feel like, and I'm not just saying this to say it, I really did feel like I was intended for more. Like I
Mm.
remember going through it being like, this can't be it. This can't be it. This isn't how I always felt, things would be. And then, just telling myself like, okay, man, you're just going through it right now. Everybody goes through it, and this is your time of going through it. And going through it lasts a little bit longer than I wanted it to. And we all go through it still. Every now and then we all have our things that we deal with, but it ain't that. It ain't what it was, in 07, 08, 9, 10, 11,
Yeah.
12, and so yeah, man. I just had that feeling like, come on, man. But it's not this is not just what you're going to be about. This is not your identity, right? This is not what you're going to be. And so feeling that and knowing that, having faith in that, just allowed me to keep fighting, allowed me to keep pushing.
Yeah, and you didn't succumb to the alcoholism and the drug addiction and the things that people use to cope with, because you really kind of have to go down before you're able to go up.
Yep.
But the up gets to be so much better than the down. But realizing we're all going to have to go through things, we're all going to have to fight. And I love that word that you said. We're going to have to fight through in order to have the things that we have. And then you end up doing things that other people aren't willing to do. And then people wonder why you get to have things that other people don't get to have, right?
Oh, Brian, yeah. There were some points, Brian. Some of the places I was living, and some of the buses I had to catch during this time. I remember walking. I mean, it was a few mile walk from this one apartment that I had to where I had to catch the bus. And I remember I had to get to work, and it was a snowstorm, and I was like, screw it. And I'm out there in my slacks. I have this mortgage job. So I'm in my slacks, I button up, a heavy coat, shoes, nice shoes in a bag, but I'm walking in boots, and I'm walking alongside of the road. This is on Arapahoe. I'm like walking along like Arapahoe towards or Parker Road towards Arapahoe.
Okay.
And this truck stops. White dude in a big pickup truck. Don't know white dudes in pickup trucks just pull over for random black men. And he pulled over and he said, "Man, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm out rocking this." He's like, "Why?" I said, "I gotta get to work, man. I got bills, I got kids, the bus is up here, I gotta get to work." He's like, "Where do you work? Let me take you to work." I said, "You don't have to take me to work, man, but if you're giving rides, you can take me right up here to this bus stop." And what I'm saying, where I'm going with this is if you have that mindset where you're making intentional moves to get to where you gotta go, get to work. I'm going there. I'm going there. I have a purpose. I could have stayed at home and called in, but that's not my mindset. My mindset is, Greg, you gotta go work, And so I had to go. What I'm saying is I had to go through that to get to where I'm at now. Because maybe if I don't go through that, I'm not prepared in life to have, the things that I have now, And so that's just a little, just small example of, kind of things that I went through. And so, yeah, I had the parents that preached education. I had grandparents that owned their own homes. And so my parents owned their own homes and had the opportunity to see that. And I had the education piece and the good family piece. But that does not mean that just because that stuff happens, that you're not going to go through struggles. Because I went through the same struggles that the brother up the street went through, the same struggles that the sister down the street went through, and it was rough. But I went through those struggles, and I fought through those struggles, and I kept faith through those struggles to get to where I am now.
I love it. I love it. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about money. Because it's one of those topics, right, that as Black men, we don't ever want to share anything about our money. We don't want to share anything about our finances. We don't even want to give. I don't know if there's just this feeling of, if you have, it must mean, and you get to have, must mean I can't. And then we blame everything. Well, only people can make money in our community are folks that, are athletes or entertainers or, in these jobs that, attorney or doctor, somehow they got to get there. Then,
right.
But just the concepts of, how did you get from, hey, I'm working 2 jobs and I'm not making enough to make ends meet, to being able to live kind of comfortably? What are some of those money decisions? I'm not talking about numbers. I'm just saying, what are some of the thought processes about money that had to shift in your mind in order to be able to move that ladder up? So there is the little more, and it's not just making more money, because there's something that goes along with it, right? Just because you get beat white, right? All the people win the lottery, right? Even the whatever is the $1 billion now, right? They'll probably be okay forever, right? But some of those other ones are. What are some of those things that those life lessons or money lessons that you learned?
Man, having that discipline to having that, I had to be broke for a minute, and I had to tell myself, hey man, you know what? You're just not going to be able to go do things for a minute, and you're going to have to fight for, every inch. And while you're doing that, I wanted to make sure I was doing right and doing good at my job, wherever I was at, so I could continue this, climbing to the ladder, so to speak. But it took discipline. I mean, there was a point in my life, that I pulled my credit and I was like, oh no, I didn't even know credit could get that low. But that was from stupid decisions. I spent my 30s making up, and I love telling people this because being in the lending business and now in the housing industry, I like telling folks, especially, we talked about things that I preach to my kids. The credit thing, they can't stop hearing me say that, because I know how easy it is to mess it up and how hard it is to build that back up. I made bad decisions in my 20s, and I spent my whole 30s trying to make up for those bad decisions. And so it was, for me, knowing the discipline of, okay, not doing what I was doing, when I was broke with bad credit. Greg, don't do that. Hey, you can't go out with the boys. There was a wedding that I didn't go to just because, it would have exhausted the rest of and it was a good friend's wedding, and I didn't go because it would have exhausted the little bit that I had, and just so gradually, put things away slowly as far as cash. I don't care if it's $20. You get paid and all you can really afford to put away right now is 20. Go put that 20 in an envelope and label that envelope something of a goal that you want to get to, and keep that over there. And then every time you get paid, put a 20 in there. I have a friend, he owns a fitness gym now he's owned a fitness gym for a while out in Arizona. Years ago, I was at his house out there hanging out, and one of the things he said was like, hey man, just whenever you have cash on you, just pull a 5 out and just put it in somewhere. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you do that a lot over time, and you just go back and look at it, like, dang, I have $500 right here real quick. So small little things that I kept hearing about, saving, putting away some money, taking that 5, putting away. But at the end of the day, having discipline. We could say this all we want to about what the right thing is to do. Everybody knows the right thing to do is to, save a little bit of money, be disciplined about that. But are you going to do it? Are you going to make the moves? So, if we're going to get, nailed down, for me, it was really just, I had to be tight. I had to be tight for a long time, and I had to learn. I lived broke for a little bit, but at the same time, while I'm doing that, I'm working my tail off at these jobs that I have. So then now, if I'm just, kind of breaking even at one point, then I'm doing a little bit better at my job. And, that it goes from this to the jobs up here, and the hurt, the fights here. And then it just keeps building up as I'm continuing to get better at my job. And at the end of the day, whatever work you're doing, perfect your craft, man. Perfect your craft, because that and that's something I started learning a little later in my career. I was doing loans, but I would catch myself not able to answer some clients' questions sometimes, and having to reach out to coworkers and this and that. And then I started watching things and hearing things, like Kobe Bryant would always talk about being master at your craft, put in the work. Jordan would talk about that. And I always have that athlete mentality. And I was like, okay, how can I switch that and apply that to my life? And I just started having to, master my craft a little bit more. And once I started paying attention to how to do my job better, all of a sudden, folks notice that. The people that you work with. And I said earlier, when I talked about my dad saying you got to be twice as better, when I was in the financial industry, you got to imagine I'm the only black face in most places that I worked at, maybe one or two. So I really got to perfect my craft, because if I'm doing the same thing that someone else is doing, they're going to be looked at a little better light than I am. And so just knowing where you are, being honest with yourself, perfect what you're doing, save along the way, and just be disciplined about it. I don't got no Jordans, man. I don't got no. My kids got better shoes than I. I'm like, where'd you get those? Why are you asking me for gas money?
I love it. Love it. Talk to me about home ownership. I mean, I know that's what you do.
Yeah.
I know it's, in our community, how important it is. And maybe just, for the 4 or 5 minutes, just talk about, not only the importance, but that it's a realistic goal. It's not something that somebody has, and it's something that people can do.
Yeah, man. My main slogan when I'm out, you probably heard me say home ownership is possible. And I say over and over and over again, because it really is. And folks, especially in our community, they don't understand how close they are to owning a home, especially right now, where if you're paying rent, let's say you're paying $2,500 in rent. When you get into a rental, you're going to have to pay first month and last month. That's $5,000 right there. You're going to have a security deposit. That's typically the same amount of what your rent is. That's $7,500 right there. That's your closing costs. And if you find all these down payment assistance programs that are out there, like CHAFA, but if you find all these down payment assistance programs that are out there, you can get into a home. And instead of taking $2,500 in rent and making someone else rich, you can put it towards your home that's going to appreciate over time. And so it's talking about home ownership in a community is talking about the importance of generational wealth, but understanding why it's important from a historical context. I mean, we can go back to World War II when the white vets were coming home from the war and the government gave them a leg up. They were giving them programs to have land. They were giving them programs to have homes and giving them a leg up, saying, thank you for fighting for our country. Government-wise, we're going to give you this. But the blacks, the black folks that were coming from war, the black soldiers and this and that, they weren't given those same opportunities. So our white counterparts, when it comes to housing, and I talk about the disparity and why we are where we are, you have to understand it from a historical context of redlining and of discrimination and zip codes, and why black folks live in a certain area and white folks don't, why it looks like a certain area, why it looks a certain way. It's from a historical point. It started way back then, and it's hard to get out of that and mindset and get out of that that group. And they wonder why we have ghettos. They wonder why we have hoods. And so home ownership is important. It's the most tried and true financial investment in our country. We've had our ups and downs, recession wise, economy wise. The one thing that's always bounced back in this country has been real estate. That's been the one thing. And we've had, we had the meltdown of 2008, but we still came back. Things aren't great where folks want rates to be and all that right now, but there's still ways. There's still homes. There's still opportunities. And so the challenge is to get our community that believes it's okay to just rent because mom or dad just rented, and their grandparents just rented, and their friends are just renting. Why should I go out and have the headache of owning a home and having to deal with the things around the house? But they're not thinking about what that home does for you in the future. You're not thinking about putting yourself on a 5-year plan, because when you buy that home and you stay in it for, let's call it 5 years in the state of Colorado, and you're paying that mortgage down and that home value is appreciating, you're creating equity in your home. Maybe something happens. Maybe maybe you got to pull money out the equity of your home, and now you can get a home equity line of credit. They can use that to help your child with college or whatever the case may be. So the importance of home ownership is important because of the kind of wealth it could create, for you and your family. Something that you could leave for your kids, and that's something that our white counterparts have been doing for a long time. When I was a loan officer, I would see not all the time, but a lot of times, these young adults getting, this 20-30,000 from mom and dad because they are able to pull out the equity of their home, or a piece of land is being passed down. I want to get myself to a point where I have a few properties. I want to own land. I want to own some real estate, and I can pass all that down to my children, and hopefully pass it down to their children. And so my dad, my parents, I feel like I kind of starting the same thing. And my parents position themselves with their home that when they unfortunately pass on, there really shouldn't be any left for us as children to pay. And that's an asset that me and my two sisters and my brother have, because my parents decided to make smart decisions. And I want to do that same thing for my children, but I want the community to understand that it's what else in our country, what else in our society can you really own that you have a deed to and it's yours? And yeah, people say, oh, the government can come seize your stuff. The government technically can do whatever the hell they want to do when they want to do it. But let's not think about it like that. Let's think like this is your home and you own it. And it's something that's appreciating the value. Cars aren't going to do that for you. The clothes ain't going to do that for you. The stocks, the insurance, whatever the case may be, the home is where it's at. And so if we can get the community to flip that mindset to really say, hey, you know what? No, this is not okay. I see all these folks out here follow the money. Look what all these, so-called moguls or whatever out there doing, the Bill Gates of the world, the Donald Trumps of the world, the big, they're all out there buying land. They're all out there buying property. They're all out there buying the real estate. Follow the money. It's important. And I just think if we can, it's really changing our mind. And it's a hard thing to do because it's a mindset that goes back way before you and me.
Yeah.
And so it's not a thing that's going to happen overnight. The home ownership rate among Black Americans in the state of Colorado, I believe right now is at 37%, 34%, 37%, which is lower than it was in the 60s when the Fair Housing Credit Act was passed. We got to do something about that.
Absolutely. And you think about, there's something about the mindset of owning a home, and one of the things that I read, it said it means responsibility. It means commitment. It means there's something about you own your own stuff. It's yours. You're able to take initiative. I was reading where it said people with this mindset believe they can shape the future and consider their choices and own up to the outcomes regardless of what happens. There's just something that takes away from things happening to me to creating things because this is mine. This is what I work for. This is what I was able to do. And if we can get all of our folks in that mindset and knowing, because that means there's nothing that they can't do, and that's kind of the first step. It's not just the first step to generational wealth. It's the first step to that mindset of being able to step up.
I love that.
Yeah. So great. You're not going to believe this, but we are at an hour.
Are we at time? Man, I had so much more to talk about. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. And I so appreciate you. You never know what these shows are going to take. But what I saw was resiliency. What I saw was the willingness to do what it takes. What I saw was the willingness to work hard at stuff. And all I saw is, hey, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to fight. And I just love that so much. And you've enhanced our community. You've given us something not only to chew on, but to emulate and to make ourselves better as a result of it. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity to give any closing thoughts that you'd want to give to, but I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to be on our show.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. It feels good. It feels good to be in the position, that I am. I doing this for the amount of time I'm doing, I'm starting to see that the mindset needs to be worked on more and more. But I think if brothers and sisters keep talking about it like we're talking about it, and hopefully in 3 to 5 years I can look back and be like, hey Brian, remember we had that conversation back in 2020, back in April 24? Look where things are now, man. And so that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I'm hoping for. I love to see us all blow up. Anything we touch is gold, and if we can touch this home ownership thing even more, that'll even be gold. So I appreciate it, man. I appreciate this platform. This is great, man. And I just want our community to keep pushing, keep fighting, keep having faith.
Keep fighting and faith. I love it. Hey, and like I say at the end of every show, and thank you for being on this, is that this is something you can do. You know, the things that we're talking about, you have the ability to be as successful as you want to be. You know, you follow the success that leaves the clues that follow you to success. Hey, you deserve this. We live in a country, and Greg even talked about, you know, a lot of the things that have happened, that whether they were fair or not fair, or whether you believe they were or not, these are things that happen. Yeah. And because of those things that happen, you deserve it, because you get to live in this country the way that this country was intended to be able to live to, and the opportunities are immense right now. But the last thing, part of it is, don't try to do this by yourself. You'll get with some people that, whether it's watching these shows, whether it's getting on my list that's on Amazon of all the different books that I've read and the tapes that I've listened to, you know, getting with people and creating communities of people that can help you along the way, because we are better together than we are by ourselves. And so get with the people who know how to do it. And so I appreciate you being here for another episode of Journey to Freedom. Can't wait to talk to you on the next one. You guys have an awesome, amazing, just incredible day today. We'll see you later.